Well, hello there. I am so glad we get to hang out in this little corner of the online world. I'm Hanna Hermanson, certified coach, international speaker, author, and founder of Dream Life is Real Life. I've helped hundreds of coaches build, scale, and enjoy their online businesses. Essentially, make their dream life their real life. So, welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast. In these shows, you'll find the real people, concrete tactics, and weekly motivation and inspiration to make your dream life your real life. Look, I started this podcast to bring you the role models I never have. All right, one of the things I love the most about the show and my friends is how different they are. And today I'm bringing you Chris Jarvis. Chris is a friend and true mentor of mine who has a little bit of a different background than a lot of people that we have on the show. So I want to give you a little bit of background on who Chris is, and then we'll dig into the episode where he talks about seeing differently, doing business differently, and you'll get to know a little bit more about why I love having such unique friends. But Chris is an applied mathematician and entrepreneurial strategist. Before selling his financial firm, Chris helped thousands of successful professionals and advised multiple billionaires. Since he moved away from that career, he has written 15 or 16 books, including some that we're going to talk about on this show. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, LA Business Journal, Personal Finance. He's been interviewed on AE and Bravo. And so today we are so fortunate that he is coming in and talking to us about his latest book, Giraffe Money. Get this.
Hanna, it is my pleasure always to talk to you. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to introduce you to the community and the show here because I love what you're doing around this, Giraffe University. In this most recent book, Giraffe Money, See Better Paths to Elevated Wealth. Tell us a little bit about where this book came from. Like, what inspired you to start putting giraffes all over everything and talking about them when it comes to finances?
That's three different questions, I think. But
start with one.
I've worked with really successful people for a long time. So mathematician, actuary, MBA in finance. I just, as a mathematician, you look at the numbers, and ultimately there's a lot of people who are in business coaching, financial planning, financial coaching, investment management. And so much of that is really hard to measure. I mean, people try to measure it, but the thing that I always found most interesting was it's pretty easy to measure taxes. And if you save somebody $1 million, you save them $1 million versus, well, I made a good investment decision, but maybe it didn't pan out because of something outside my control or whatever it might be. But taxes was always the quantifiable way. And what I did in my career for a long time was I helped people who made a lot of money save a lot of taxes. And unsurprisingly, the people who made the most money were most interested in saving taxes. And what I really figured out was that the people who make a lot of money, I finally figured out later on when I stopped focusing on how do I help them save the money and how do I build companies to do this, was I went back and started looking at, well, what made them successful? And it turns out that people who make a lot of money, quite frankly, there's no other way to describe it, they do wacky shit. I mean, that's just what it was. So when I did the 6 Secrets to Leveraging Success book, this was the book about what's the difference between the really successful people and super successful people, and the mindset and how do they think differently, and where's the psychology, and then what things do they actually do to grow their businesses. What I found was, especially in this whole pandemic, this book I wrote over the last few months, and it launched in the middle of the pandemic. I think I really started writing it in March, April, was this different perspective. And what I found was that no matter who you are in today's crazy society, whether you're left or right, whether you think coronavirus is the next plague, it's going to take out half of society, or you think it's some left-wing conspiracy, how do you feel about Black Lives Matter? How do you feel about police and government? I don't care how anybody feels and what side they're on any of the major issues, but what I know is that everybody in the last 4 months has somehow changed the way they look at their health and lifestyle, their family, or their business and career. So they all have things that they want to do or things they want to change. And unfortunately, the reason why most people don't turn those things into reality is because of money. And what really is painful about that is that if I were to ask anybody, I mean, if you're listening to this, ask yourself, if someone asked you what's more important, money or your health, everyone's going to say
Health.
health. If I say what's more important, family or money?
Family.
What's more important, having a business and career where you have purpose and passion and you love what you do and you have impact, or money?
Purpose, passion, impact.
Yet 99% of decisions are made because of money.
Yeah.
Or more importantly, decisions aren't made because of money. So I find that almost everyone answers my health, my lifestyle, my family, my purpose, my passion, my impact, society, community are all more important than money. Yet the reason why people don't do the things that will make them healthier, that will give them a better family, that will allow them to have more impact and passion is because of money. So, the old saying, what you do speaks so loudly, I can barely hear what you're saying. People say that money isn't important, yet most decisions are around money. So writing the Giraffe Money book, for me, it was not just, do you want to start a business and how do you get to the next level? It was, how am I thinking about money? How does money hold me back? And then go to those billionaire clients that I've had the pleasure of working with and countless clients worth 25, 50, $100 million. What did they do to become so successful? Take those ideas and say, what can the average person or above average person do to change the way that they look at money and not be a slave to it, which unfortunately most people are.
Yeah. Something I talk to entrepreneurs or clients a lot about is the fact that money is just one form of energy. So like you're saying, like we have all this other wealth that's available to us, yet somewhere we decided that these numbers on a screen or these bags full of gold, like that's what determines our value. So I'm curious for you, Chris, like having the like financial advising background, but also a lot of like the mindset work and the other things I know that you're into. How do you define wealth?
How do I define wealth? It's funny. There's a lot of quotes in the book, and one of them, I wish I could pull it up and right now, it would show a real great mastery of the material. But there's a quote at the top of one of the chapters that says, it's from Chris Rock, the comedian, and basically says, wealth isn't about having a lot of money. It's about having a lot of options. And ultimately, that idea of wealth, of what is it you want to do? I think Tony Robbins has a quote that I don't believe is unique to him. I think he might have taken it from Jim Rohn or from somebody else. That was, success is doing what you want to do with the people you want to do it, when you want to do it, as much as you'd like to do it. And so that may sound very Roman emperor-esque of I'm going to, engage in anything I want, when I want, with who I want. But ultimately, that really is the wealth thing. I was on another program yesterday, and so I was talking to someone about that, and I asked the question. I shared a question that I asked with a lot of young students and young entrepreneurs. The question is, you have two people. Person A works 100 hours a week and makes $1 million a year. Person B works 10 hours a week and makes $80,000 a year. Who's more successful? And it's interesting the answers I'll get. Some will say the million, some will say the 80. Of course, I'll ask, why do you say that? And some try and do the math in their head of how much is it per hour and what did I really make? And they say, well, what's the answer? And I said, it just depends on the person. So what is it you want to do with the other time you have? If you're, if you really love what you do and you're trying to stockpile cash to cure cancer, or you're doing something that really matters, then the 100-hour-a-week job might be perfect if that works for you. But for other people, if you're caring for someone who's sick, or you have a spouse with dementia, or you're sailing around the world and you just stop, once a week for a half a day to get some work done when you're in port and go back, either one could be successful. So for me, the wealth is how do you get out of it what you want? And that's really the big difference. Is the mindset is so important. And that was a lot of the lessons I got from the people in the book was that, and that's, long-windedly 9 minutes later, I'm getting around to your answer of why the giraffe. The really big difference that I found when I was looking at all these outliers is not everybody is Steve Jobs, who's egomaniac and very focused and just runs people over to get done what they want because they're just so smart and determined. I mean, that is one path to success. But what was really interesting with the success was when I started researching all these people who were super successful, what did they have in common? They were all giraffes. And I don't mean that in a physical, literal sense, or even the metaphor that they're just taller than other people or they stand above. It's more about the giraffe being it's the only animal that has evolved to become more vulnerable. So every other animal that's a prey animal is trying to avoid the predators. You learn how to burrow. You learn how to climb a tree. You develop camouflage. The giraffe has some modest camouflage, but at 18 feet, it's kind of hard to hide. So the giraffe has evolved to create its most vulnerable area, its neck, to be really long, which makes it really easy for there's a lot of areas for a lion to bite onto. Let's say if it can get it down. But the benefit of being vulnerable and sticking your neck out is that you get to see things others can't and reach things others won't. So how many people would like to see what's coming down the pike, know what's happening with school, with the election, with the economy? How many people would like to know what's happening in their industry? And
I just want to know when I can travel again.
When you can travel again. Exactly. Have some idea when you can actually go someplace and have things be open and have it be safe to do so. So that's, those people stuck their necks out so they could see other paths. They got their head out of the weeds. And that really is a big part of, there's so much of my background is strategy, and that metaphor sticks, that you've got to get your head out of the weeds. If you think of the alternative to the giraffe, I think of the opposite in the book. I talk about zebra, and that they're in a herd, their heads are down literally in the grasses and the weeds eating. And when you lift your head up, like the only thing you see is the ass in front of you. And in a herd, you do what the ass in front of you does. And so there's a chapter which you read where one of the lines is, avoid the masses. Sometimes the M is silent, right? And and you be really careful of just doing what other people do because other people are doing it. But that's the herd mentality of, we'll all do this, so we'll all be in it together. So you don't need to worry about getting a bad result. We're all going to get the same result. People who are super successful, the giraffes, aren't in herds. They can go other places to reach things others can't. Giraffes eat leaves at the top of a tree. Trees often have roots that are as deep as the tree is tall. So a 30-foot tree has 30-foot roots. Grass is only 3, 6, 12 inches high. The roots are very shallow. So when there's no water, there's no grass. But you can have trees in the desert. So you find that most people, that part of the metaphor really sticks, that super successful people find trees in the desert. They find a way to find success. Not just sustenance, but they don't just survive, they thrive in places that nobody else can go.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is opening people's minds to, I shouldn't ask the person next to me what they do. I need to be asking people who are way ahead of me what they do, or I need to try something nobody else has tried, because if I just keep doing the same thing everybody else does, I'm going to keep getting the same thing everybody else gets.
Right. And this is really tricky for a lot of people that I work with or talk to who are zebras, right? They're in a pack. It's been comfortable for them. They might have been looking down. And even for me, like, I got myself to an okay patch. Like, I was eating grass of thought leaders or entrepreneurs, but I was still looking around at everyone else's ass. And this is so easy with social media, with all the noise in our faces of how I did this, how they got that. And we duplicate what other people are doing because it seems to have worked for them. So you mentioned one thing, right? Talking to people who are way ahead of you to grow that neck or grow that giraffeness. And you've helped me a lot, pull my head up. But what are some other ways that we can become more giraffe-like if we're in a herd right now?
I think there's a couple things. So you can look inward and you can look outward. And for a lot of people, looking inward is a little bit difficult. They struggle with, what do I really want? What does that mean? What issues do I have to tackle? And maybe they're not ready for that. So, one place to look is to look to other people and just ask other folks who are further ahead, what are they doing? What advice? You'd be surprised how people who are generally successful are happy to give advice to other people who are trying to become successful. There's a lot of opportunities out there. There's, the society, the SCORE, which is the retired executive, Service Corps of Retired Executives. So there's people who have been in industries that they just volunteer their time. So I think it's score.org, I think. I get calls all the time from class entrepreneurial professors want me to teach or do a lecture or answer some questions. And you'd be surprised how available people are. And so some of it is just asking the folks who are successful what that looks like. But you really do also have to you do have to look inward a little bit to see what's important for you. Just like the two people, the 100-hour-a-week person making $1 million or the 10-hour-a-week person making $100,000 an hour, $100,000 a year. What is it you really want? And that was, just not putting you on the spot, but we talked about a lot of those things when you and I talked back was, well, what is it you want to be and why do you want to be that? And does that really matter? So I think that's part of it. Part of the advice when I'm doing marketing consulting or strategy consulting for folks is we have an exercise where I have people go and look at all their competitors and say, print out their websites, take their lines, look at their social media. What do you get from all of them? Tell me the colors, tell me the logos, tell me the messaging, the taglines, and then let's put all of those up on the board. And then the next thing is, now we can never use any of those ever again. I mean, just anything that your competitor says, we're not going to say. Even if it's true about you and it's a lie about them, you can't, it doesn't do you any good. You're not going to stand out to people by just being someone who's a little better. John Paul Getty, probably before you were born, Hanna, was the richest man in the world. He was an oil guy, and they asked him, is there any formula for success? And he said, yes, anybody can do it. Oh, really, Mr. Getty? What are those three things? And he said, wake up early, work hard, find oil. And, some people, the piece that's missing in that is that he's mocking people, or he's even mocking his own success, because there's a lot of people who get up early and work hard, but it's one in very few who stumble upon oil. So the point is that the work, what I take from that quote is the getting up and working hard part, luck is an enormous piece of that equation to how you become successful. So unless you want luck to be, you want to flip a coin every day and think, okay, if I get 27 days in a row of heads, then I'm finally going to be successful. I mean, if you want to do that, you should probably turn this off and go flip some coins. But if you want to increase your odds, then think about something completely different and find a different, that's back to the wacky shit idea of people who are super successful. They either have a wacky product or a wacky way to make it, or a wacky way to deliver it, or a wacky relationship, wacky distribution channel, wacky compensation schedule. I mean, there's something unusual that allows that company to be successful, or that person to be successful.
Yeah, and you talk about that a lot in this one, the 6 secrets, right? When you kind of looked at what those successful folks were doing, is that they're outliers, right? And so I love this idea of like finding people who are the outliers, who are doing things differently, who are successful and on their own terms, it sounds like. Yep. And another thing you are so great at, and you've helped me do over and over and over, is to keep the vision big. Right. So we've heard before, like it takes as much energy to make a small goal as it does to make a big goal. And so I personally have a tendency to get into the how. Like, okay, like I see the asses, I understand I'm in the weeds, but like how do I grow my neck? How do I get out of this? And so talk to us a little bit about like the balance between having a big vision and figuring out the path, your path to success.
Well, let's use the danger of doing this, but let's use today's situation in the United States. I mean, it's July 30th, 2020, and it's not exactly the greatest time in our country's history. So right now you have people on either side of issues. And if there's a whole bunch of people who are thinking about everything over here this way, then the way to bring people to the middle is to, at least the approach has been, let's find an equally outrageous thought on the other end. So we'll try and bring people to the middle to at least consider some wild ideas at either end. And all the political stuff has moved to the far ends. And I'm not saying that that's successful, but that's there's a reason for that people go to far extremes. Is number one, a moderate solution is not interesting to anybody. It doesn't give any headlines. But if you think that if you have a crazy idea over here, or I have a crazy idea and you have a moderate idea, we're going to land somewhere in the middle. So some of this is by dreaming so big, a couple things happen. One, maybe it pulls you out of the limiting beliefs that you have of the thing that's, if I said to you, you could go from, your 1,500 square feet to 2,100 square feet. You might think that's nice, but why don't you come stay at my 7,000 square foot house and look around? And then you think, oh, like that would be a lot more interesting, or whatever the number is that people think, ooh, I like that. Like that's more interesting, right? That's the if you're taking a bus, you don't put somebody on a train, you put them on a private jet and go, ooh, that's way more convenient than taking the bus cross country on, whatever that might be. But the other idea too is that when you're thinking really big, you open your mind. The more powerful thing about the thinking really big is if I said to you, you need to make $100 by tomorrow, you'll think something. But if I said you needed to make $1 million by next Monday, you're going to think very differently about what that might be, because you have to think of something more extreme. And so those big goals open your mind to, ooh, that might only be an incremental change. And I had a motivational speaker, someone I saw a long time ago, who said, you're not going to make significant success. You're not going to have monumental growth with minimal change. You can't just alter your course a little bit and make little differences. And most people major in minor things. They think about, if I could do this, if I got 5 more minutes here, if I saved a few dollars here, if I did this. Mm-hmm. But those are the things that don't get you thinking differently on, if your income was $250,000 last year, great. What would you have to do to make $2.5 million next year? Like, what would that require? And what happens is you start thinking about leverage. And that's in both books, actually, is for people to grow, the biggest challenge, an interesting statistic from Emmanuel Saez when he won the economic award for his economic inequality research out of Cal Berkeley, he talked about the fact that people who make $300,000-$400,000 a year are less likely to make $1 million a year than somebody who makes $40,000 a year. Now, that doesn't make any sense. That's the crazy story that you've heard people say, well, you can boil frozen water faster than you can boil room temperature water. Well, that's physically impossible, because the water has to go from frozen to room. Like, it has to pass through that. But what we find is that for income, if you could go to work every day and bill people $250 an hour, you're not likely to gamble that away and to build something that's going to be so backloaded that you might make $20 million. But the person who has no way, because of education, racial inequality, social problems, it doesn't matter what it is, you're not a tall white guy like I am, whatever the thing that's holding you back, if you don't have any of those ways to do that, the only way for you to live a moderately successful life is for you to be super successful, because no one's going to pay the person with an 8th grade education $400 an hour for advice. So they got to go build the crazy thing. It just changes it just makes you think so much bigger. And what's really important with that is you stop. If I told you had to make 20% more money next year, you'd start thinking about, how do I make 10% more? How do I save a few dollars? Yeah. But if you have to make 50 times the money next year, it's no longer about you. And now you realize, I'm going to have to leverage other people, because there's no way for me to create 50 times the efficiency I have. So it all goes to leverage. It all goes to, I need to find other people to help me on my journey. And I think that becomes the stop. I'm going to do it myself, to, oh shit, this is a lot bigger than I am. So I need to find a way to motivate more people, find ways to give them what they need so they can help me get what I need. And it just creates more of a crowd, mix of metaphors. There's a crowdfunding in there, and there's a lot of different elements to that.
People are majoring in minor things. I just want to say that again for the people in the back. And this is really scarcity versus abundance mindset, right? That like, okay, I have to save my pennies for a rainy day and like hoard and like tighten up, scarcity versus abundance. Okay, if I want to be in a different place, I have to do things differently. And, this kind of is very pertinent to me right now, because I have to be very conscientious of who I take advice from. Are the people who are telling me to slow down, to be quiet, to stop, to play it safe, like, do I want to replicate what they have? Or do I want to be very different? And do I want to do things differently? And do I want to think about it differently? And maybe ruffle some feathers along the way, but trust that if I challenge my brain to make a crazy, massive, audacious goal, at least I'll land among the stars, right? Shoot for the moon, land among the stars, which is a very different path than most people, in a lot of my like inner circles historically have been. So I know listeners right now, they're with you, Chris. They're like, yep, big goals. That makes sense. I'll go to the extreme. What happens if I do fall short? If I do fall among the stars? How do you grapple with setting big goals and maybe not having it all come to fruition?
Well, it's never going to. So this idea that you're going to make it on the first try, to be that confident now, yet you never tried it before seems a little crazy. So I would go see a neurologist and figure out what happened. But the you're going to fail, but it's the term fail that really causes problems. The people who are super successful, one of the chapters of Six Secrets is embrace and welcome failure. And the idea is you're going to learn from the things that you had. The financial firm that I sold for millions of dollars started as a pharmaceutical ad agency. Then it became a marketing company. Then it became a legal referral business. Then it became a financial referral business. Then it became a large brokerage agency. Then it was a company I got kicked out of and had to start over again. And then, there's just businesses change and people change over time. So whatever you think it is, I've never seen a business plan ever that somebody looked back and said, I had this exactly right, because it's never happened. So you're going to fail, but the fail thing is not a fail of, it's not a failing in, the people who landed in America leaving Europe weren't trying to come here, right? This funny part of this country, the people were trying to get to the Far East, to India and to China, so that they could trade, they could find a different way than going around Cape Town. So they were trying to find something else. So they found the entire world that you live in, and that wasn't what they were looking for. So whatever you think you're looking for, you'll probably get into it and realize it's something else. So it's just getting moving to get somewhere and realizing as you get into the journey, the best laid plans of you think people are going to respond to a certain message. They're not. You're going to think they're going to want to buy a certain product. They won't. You're going to think they're going to want something out of you. It looks that way, but once you start to keep attracting people to your mission, you may find that you're no longer the main executive. There's somebody strategically who's better served, and you're going to do product development, or you're not the salesperson now, you're the ops person, or you're not the ops person, you're the salesperson, or you just won't know until the pieces. It'd be like giving you 5 pieces from a puzzle and saying, what is this picture of? And the 5 pieces you have might be the picture of the window over Hannah's shoulder, and you go, oh, this is a landscape. You're like, no, it's a window in a room where there's something really interesting going on. So I don't know if it's fail. It's just whatever you think it's going to be. It's not, you have a vision of which direction you have to go, and things are going to reveal themselves as you get there based on the people who come into your life, based on the conversations you have, based on the choices, based on what the universe gives you, whether you believe in fate or religion or the universe or abundance or whatever it is, it's all going to reveal itself later, because you don't have the whole picture. Even the giraffe that sees so much better than the zebra still can only see 25 times as far as a human. It can't see around corners. It can't see behind rocks. It can't see to the bottom of streams. It can't see past the horizon. There is some, you have a general idea, but you're going to course correct a ton of times based on a variety of things. I thought my business was going to be something particular. And, my dad died a couple months ago, and it was like, okay, well, that's whatever plans I had to interact with him on certain stuff. Like, okay, that's interesting. There's just things in life. People are going to come in, people are going to go out, things are going to appear. So, and right now it's actually the Facebook Live I might do later today is, it's a perfect time to start a business. And it's because things are changing so much that people are open to new ideas. How many people were doing Zoom meetings with their doctors?
Yeah.
This is an unusual world that people are open to new stuff. So it's a good time to pitch some stuff, because right now people are thinking, oh,
right.
I'm going to do a drive-in movie. What is this, 1978? Yet you're just happy to see a movie that's not in your house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So to that point, what is something listeners can do today to set them on this journey? Like what is a step one immediate action that folks can take?
I would say I'd make a promise, and that promise is I don't know what happened. I don't know what position you're on. I don't know, and I don't particularly care really. It's your journey, how things have changed in your life in the last 4 years. But last 4 months, excuse me. But my thought is something in your health and lifestyle, your views about health and lifestyle have changed somehow. You would like to live in a different place. You'd like to do more yoga. You'd like to live in the country. You'd like to lose weight so you're not so susceptible to the virus. I don't know, whatever it is. You want to live in a different country. There's something you want to do health and lifestyle wise. you have some view about family. You want to start a family, you want to get out of a family, you want to be closer to family, you want to be further from family. There's something about your family that you've made a decision on, and there's something business and career. And so I would write down what those changes in perspective have resulted or manifested during the last 4 months. What are you thinking about differently in all three areas? And then the second part to each one of those questions is, what would it take for those things to become reality? And in order for you to have the thing you want to live in the country, great, what do I have to do? I have to sell my house. I've got to find a place in a new place. Whatever it is, what are those things? And then ask yourself, why haven't I done them? Like, what things had to happen, or what could I do to get there? Of those things that would have to happen, which ones are in my control, which ones aren't? And I find that for not all of them are money related. For the ones that are, you might find some of the info in the book in Giraffe Money helpful, just to help you alleviate some of your fears and handle some of those. But the other question is, what are the other things that are stopping you from doing the things that you want out of life? Because you already know what 3 changes you want to make. Almost everybody I know has some difference in family dynamics, some difference in health and lifestyle, and some business and career goal or epiphany that's taken place in the last 4 months. Want to work more, want to work less, want to travel more, want to travel less. I don't know. I mean, there's some people have feelings. Then what has to happen for those things to happen for you?
Yeah.
And just embrace those things.
This is the contrast, right? So anytime we know what we don't want, we also know more of what we do want. And I think this pandemic is just the most obvious contrast that none of us can avoid right now. So that is huge. I hope folks are taking out pen and paper and writing down, like, what are some of the new things you've realized you do want or you don't want? What changes do you need to make? Break it down again. I think there's like 4 things. I want them to be able to like pen to paper this.
There in your life, health and lifestyle, family, business, and career. So how do you feel differently? What would you like to see continue or be different for your health and lifestyle? What would you like to see be different from a family standpoint? Do you want to be closer to a sibling, parent? You want to get out of living in your parents' basement? I mean, whatever it is, something family related you want to change. Yeah. And the third is business and career. What would you like to see be different going forward? And then ask yourself, what things would have to happen to make each one of those 3 things a reality? And then, of course, the next step, and this is why you have people like Hanna, is which ones of those things are in my control and which ones aren't. And then work with your coach to say, okay, well, let me focus on the things I can focus on, then I can't focus on other things. Right? The idea that, well, I can't leave living in this place because I have my mother living in the, treating her in the other room, to say, well, she would have to die for me to move. Like, I'm not suggesting you take a pillow. I'm just saying, like, you can realize that one is outside your, outside of what you can do right now. So just accept the fact you can't do it and you have that responsibility. It's important to you. And then go do the other things. And then you can come back to that one.
Amazing. Yes, so much. And this really is that starting to see a different path, right? You're not the victim. It's not all a mess. Like, let's really break it down and just start to get on a path. It will change. It will get crook-eyed, but at least you're moving forward to that big vision that Chris is so passionately sharing and inspiring us to commit to. So where can people continue this conversation and learn more about you and giraffes, Chris? Where can they go?
So website, you can go to chrisjarvis.me. You can go to giraffeu.com, which is actually in process right now. So it's early stage, but that's a place for entrepreneurs to figure things out and meet with other people. And so all that's in process. So folks can get a sneak peek at that through you. I haven't given that URL to anybody yet. So you guys are first. Either place. So find me, and I'm on all the usual social media joints, and you can look around. If I can be helpful or can stimulate you or disrupt you a little bit if you need it, I'm there to do it. If you're really comfortable where you are, don't follow me. I'm not good.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chris Jarvis. This was mind-blowing and actionable, which we always appreciate here. So friends, I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.
All right, and that's a wrap for our Dream Life is Real Life show today. Thank you for hanging out with me, Hanna Hermanson, and our inspiring community here. Be sure to visit dreamlifeisreallife.com/show to get all of the resources and more that we talked about today so that you can keep building, scaling, and enjoying your dream life and business. Until next time.